Hello, Rishi.
Hello.
Um, what you just said about the story about Annamalai Swami was really speaking to me because I wanted to just speak with you because I felt a bit this conflict inside that's between um like the desire to know myself and then sometimes the desire for things of the world, and I feel I always kind of get really pulled in or sucked into um one of these things. And so if it's like the world, then my practice kind of completely gets put aside.
Yes.
Um, and on the other hand, when I'm really doing this self-inquiry on a regular basis, then sometimes I feel a bit like Atmavidya said, like I'm just not interested in the things of the world, and I get this fear of um, just being in the world, like either wanting the circumstances to change or myself, the way I am is changing, and then there's a fear of how that might affect the environment, and yeah, it just feels a bit conflictual inside. So I wanted to bring it to
Yes, very good. Yeah, this is also Atmavidya's story, yes. And
you.
this is the story for all of us, isn't it? You know, when this is going on. Yeah, yeah. It's important during these kinds of moments and in these kinds of conversations for us to come to the very simple understanding that all of this can be going on in this moment, in any moment. But the self, the supreme, is not affected by this. Whatever you are experiencing in any given moment, the truth of your own nature is that it will pass. Nothing remains. Nothing remains. And in a way, I'm not trying to discourage you, but in a way, it can be said that trying to control the world by detaching from it and staying deeply involved in practice is a good thing, but it's temporary. This is what you're noticing actually, is that it's temporary. So you can keep up. It's just like doing various kinds of yogic breaths. You know, if you use pranayam, you know this. I don't know if you ever have, but if you use pranayam, you notice that various kinds of body mind states can be obtained and maintained. The mind can be stilled, the emotions can be calmed, all sorts of wonderful results can happen as a result of doing various kinds of breathing exercises. But what you also notice very quickly is that the consequences of using the breath to still the mind, as an example, are temporary, meaning that as soon as you stop doing a circular breath, or as soon as you stop doing a squared breath, or whatever, the whatever was there before that was troubling you, that caused you to want to use the breath to calm, it may not come back with the same intensity, but it comes back. It comes back very quickly, in fact. So it's just a temporary solution. And sometimes we actually need that, right? Because the mind is very disturbed or the body is very fearful or something. And we need that temporary respite, that temporary uh, removal of that difficulty. And so this is the foundation of pranayam. And this is also the foundation of practices like the inquiry or following the breathing in vipassana. All of these techniques and methods bring us into the state of here now to some degree, into the present moment, and they leave us feeling not quite so distracted and quite so scattered as when we're out in the world. And for someone who has an inherent, very strong heart nature, who wants to understand something in this life about who am I, what is my nature as spirit, as being, consciousness, and bliss, there is going to be this pull that you describe into practice and into the world. But I can assure you that this, if you don't struggle with it, if you allow what is here spontaneously now to be here, you will come to understand what has true value for you. And so you have to have a little bit of faith around that there will be some true value which will show up. And then those things in your life, in your day-to-day life, which have some true value to you, they will remain some time, and you can just allow them to be there. It's not a problem. Those things which are part of your heart nature, this which is really only the desire to know who I am. This is really the only heart nature we have. When this is here, we will allow ourselves to go fully into that for a period of time and not worry about the world that we've left behind. So this will just be the natural flow of things. The difficulty that we face in this expression is that the mind grabs a hold of it and it sets up a tennis match. And it hits the ball over here and hits the ball back and hits the ball over here and hits the ball back. This is what the mind does. So this is the activity of the mind. So just acknowledge that. This is the activity of the mind. Then when you feel your heart pulled and you feel to go back into this period of deeper reflection, let's say, this deeper silence, you will just go into it more naturally and you won't worry about what's happening outside in the world around you at that moment. And if there comes a time when life pulls you back out into the world, you will still keep within your heart center this recognition, I am the self. Even in this, crazy energy, I am the self. And then this recognition will ultimately pull you back out of this crazy energy and set you in the center of your own being again.
Thank you.
Yes. Through all of our experience, through all of our circumstance, this practice is always our understanding, our recognition, always is I am the self. No matter what the mind and body is demonstrating, this is so important. I am the self. This is not to give yourself permission to do anything, to harm people, to, disturb yourself intentionally, let's say. This is not the point of it. The point is for you to come to understand and to feel very deeply in the midst of whatever turmoil you are experiencing, whatever shaking and shimmering you are experiencing, whatever emotion you are experiencing. There is this recognition that even with this experience present, with this object, circumstance here, I am the self. This takes great courage, doesn't it? Especially if you've just said something, done something, harmed someone with your words, and you feel, oh, this is just so much, this is such an indicator that I am not awake. I will never get there. At this moment, you must remember that these experiences they do not define who you are, that you are the self. You are the self at all times. And this is just a brief manifestation of the belief that I am the body, that I am not awake. This is the mind trying to tell me that I don't understand something. And so it leads me to behave badly. But it's not about whether you are behaving beautifully or behaving badly as a body and mind. It's about the recognition that I am the self, here, now, even in this experience. I am the self.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How
Yes.
do we know when we're using that as an excuse to, you said, like, to do whatever the mind
Yes.
or whatever wants to be done?
If you are watching, if you are paying attention, in other words, if you are aware, as we were talking about earlier, if you are aware that certain kinds of thoughts are present, certain kinds of experiences are present, certain kinds of behaviors are present periodically, not necessarily all the time, you can notice that there is something that you can't name, which is always aware in all those different kinds of circumstances. Once you realize that, it becomes harder and harder to believe on some level that because you momentarily were behaving badly, that that is who you are. It just becomes harder and harder to believe that. The key is to just keep turning away. The tendency for all of us as I, the personality, the tendency in that mind state is to think that everything that is happening in our experience says something about who I am. This is how the process of defining ourselves as a body-mind works. We habitually assume that the behavior that we are seeing, the thoughts we are experiencing, the emotional state which we are experiencing, that those things are the definition me. And to some degree, of course, they are, because that's the personal me. So that's how we define ourselves. But as we were talking about earlier, if you really look, all of that over here, this kind of activity, was all being watched from over here by something we cannot define. So it's by doing that, by noticing in this moment, even with this present, this difficulty, so on, I am aware. I am aware. There is awareness here. First you notice I am aware, then you notice, wait a minute, I am not aware. Awareness is aware. Then you notice this. So always we are moving toward this recognition, which is that holistic vastness that I was speaking about, toward this recognition that this awareness is here. It is the foundation for all of this. And since I can see this thought, I can see this emotion, I can see this behavior, I cannot be them because I cannot be something I can see. It's like saying, "Oh, I see that chair, therefore I am a chair." Right? It doesn't make any sense to us. So our behavior, our thoughts, our emotions become just like that. Oh, I can see this. What is it that can see this? This is the process of inquiry.
Should we still place some importance in like changing behavior sometimes when we feel it's like needed or necessary?
Yes, so over time, there's a different standard though. I don't want to get you involved necessarily in the belief that there is a moral kind of behavior or attitude that you need to take, and that if you get everything morally right, you will become enlightened. That isn't the foundation of this, okay? The foundation really is that over time, with the recognition that the goal or the purpose of my being is to realize the self, then what happens is that any behavior, any pattern of thinking, any emotional drama or trauma that you like to attach to on a regular basis, all of these are seen to be not supportive of the realization that the goal of my life is to awaken. And so it becomes like this. Oh, I see that by indulging in this thought pattern, in this emotional pattern, in this behavior, it moves me further and further away from the recognition I am the self. And so therefore, now I don't need to argue with that. It just becomes uninteresting. Why? Because my desire is to awaken. And anything which seems to impede that, veil it, cover it over, or whatever, we simply can't stay with it.
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And all of this, I want you to keep up your effort, but I also want you to understand that all of this happens quite naturally as you engage in the recognition, I am the self, or ask the question, am I aware, or who am I? That all of this has its own way of unfolding. And so you just keep going. Just keep going. And don't believe anything the mind says. This is key. Don't believe anything your mind's telling you. Only know and believe that you are the self under all circumstances, in all conditions. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritawa Swaha Uva Vu Om Sat Shung Hang Om